Who do the people say that I am? Jesus asked the disciples. He's not interested in gossip or even his reputation. He genuinely wants to know what is being said and what people think. And the disciples reply, well, some say you are John the Baptist, who was a man of God, who preached that God's final judgment would be soon, and he called on his followers to prepare for that by repenting of their sin and being baptized. Others said Elijah, a prophet and miracle worker who called on the people to worship the true God of Israel, and who is believed will come back before the Messiah arrives. Others said Jeremiah, the prophet who lived his words, who called the people back to true worship, the worship of the one true God, and who lived into the years of the exile to Babylon. Or maybe one of the other prophets. So people were thinking that Jesus was someone sent from God. Well, who do you say I am? Jesus asks them. And Simon, son of Jonah, replies, you're the Messiah, the King from the line of David, who will save the nation, the Anointed One. John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, the prophets, the Messiah. These people, these names are all so well known that they only need to be mentioned and everyone's on the same page. That's the thing about a name. It does more than simply identify which person is which. We can also get a sense sometimes of who that person is, the work they do, their background, even the things they like or a characteristic they have, especially if it's a nickname. Well, the man who is most widely known as Peter in the Bible is actually known by a nickname, one that describes his role in the church. We know Peter as one of the disciples of Jesus, one of the leaders. And since his death, he has achieved sainthood in the church. That may be why Peter has always been a popular name for boys. But no Jewish family in Jesus' time ever named their baby boy Peter, because that's a Greek name. And it comes from a Greek word meaning rock. Rock is the nickname Jesus gave to the disciple, whose real name was Simon, son of Jonah, or Simon Bar Jonah, and it's the first time anyone ever had that name in the Bible. In fact, there's no record that has ever been found of anyone in the ancient Greek world being named Peter before Jesus gave that nickname to Simon. The story we just heard from the Gospel of Matthew makes a big deal out of Peter's new name. What happens is that Jesus and his disciples have come to the region known as Caesarea Philippi on the Mediterranean Sea. It's about 20 miles northwest of the Sea of Galilee. The disciples don't know it yet, but Jesus is already looking toward a dark horizon, toward the city of Jerusalem. He knows he must go there to suffer and to die. Here at Caesarea Philippi, Jesus has arrived at a turning point in his life. From now on, everything about him, all his teaching, all his traveling, will be moving toward the cross. So, at this pivotal moment, he asks his disciples, "Who do the people say that I am?" The disciples think for a moment and then begin to try to give answers. Well, some of them think you're John the Baptist come back from the dead, one of them said. Another disciple says, others think you're Elijah or Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Jesus takes this in, and then he says, "What about you? Who do you say that I am?" Simon, son of Jonah, was the one who summoned the courage to answer. "You're the Messiah," he says, "the Son of the living God." And that turned out to be the right answer to the riddle. Jesus wasn't just another prophet. He wasn't John the Baptist returned from the grave. He was the long-awaited Messiah, the Son of God. "Bless you, Simon," Jesus says. "You didn't get that answer from human beings. You got that from my Father in heaven." And then Jesus says one more thing to Simon. "You know who I am, and I know who you are too. You are Peter. You are rock. And on this rock, I'm going to build my church." Now, Peter was many things: thoughtful, practical, impulsive. In other words, human. Jesus looks at him and thinks that he is a faithful, solid, devoted, loving, and full of courage person. "I can depend on him," Jesus says. "He's the kind of person I can build the church on, a rock. A wise man builds his house upon the rock." This story also occurs in Mark's and Luke's Gospels. In each account, we see Peter transformed by listening to God and then being able to verbalize his belief that Jesus is the Messiah. What is distinctive about Matthew's report of Peter's confession in Jesus is how Jesus responds to it, which connects Peter's confession of faith to the reality of the church. The church is rooted in the confession of who Jesus is. Sound logic does not arrive at this conclusion. It is an event of divine revelation. Peter did not do this himself, Jesus says. It had to be revealed to him by God. The confessing church lives out of sheer grace. The church is also set in a context of conflict. The gates of Hades, or as in the RSV says, the powers of death, is very vivid imagery. Prevail suggests that death takes an offensive, and we have to fight against it. Despite the onslaughts, the church hangs on and ultimately emerges victorious. Or the church could be storming the gates on the offensive. In either case, the church is not a place of repose and peace, but a community engaged in mortal conflict. It anticipates and even prepares itself for vigorous opposition. And the church is also entrusted with the keys to God's kingdom, God's reign, symbolizing the ultimate victory over death. Bind and loose conjure notions of being restrained and then freeing, forbidding some things and permitting or allowing. They describe the functions of keys in being able to exclude or admit people in. These keys become weapons in the struggle with the forces of death. Death is destined to lose because the church has been given the keys, the decisive weapon. In other words, Jesus reminds us it's not enough to say, "I believe in God," or even, "I believe there is a God." That doesn't mean anything. People hate in the name of God. People kill in the name of God. People are prejudiced in the name of God. We have to answer, what kind of God do I believe in? This kind, Peter declares, the God who is presented in Jesus Christ, not some vague little feeling that crawls around in my heart that makes me say, I feel kind of funny. I think I must have faith. Our faith is not based on some elusive, hard to put into words feeling like love often is. Remember the time a crowd gathered to hear Jesus, and they were a long way from home and hungry, and Jesus fed them? Do you remember when he took those little children on his lap and blessed them and talked to them and spoke to their parents? Do you remember when a leper came up to Jesus and said, "Please help me"? And he was made clean and healed. Do you remember when Jesus was with the disciples and they were arguing over who was the greatest? And then Jesus took a towel and a basin of water, and he washed every one of their feet, and he showed them what greatness was really all about? Do you remember when Jesus took the cross on his shoulder and started up the hill toward Golgotha? That is what God is like. That is who we believe in. More than a name, Messiah describes who Jesus is. It means the one who does save us. A God who wants to spend time with us, talk with us, be in relationship with us. The one who wants to include us in what is going on in the world. The Greek word Petros, meaning stone, a smaller piece of a large rock. The large rock being a Petra, a boulder. Those are the words in the Greek New Testament. Peter is Petros, and on this rock, this Petra, this great big boulder, Jesus will build his church. Peter is blessed because his answer is the one God has given him. It is God's answer. He is a rock because he is a chunk of the foundational rock, a chip off the old block. And it is on this relationship that the church is built. Peter is chosen not because the right answer occurred to him. On the contrary, the right answer occurred to him because Peter was chosen. Who do people say I am? Perhaps we can answer that easily. Report on the feedback, what we've heard people say. But then Jesus asks, who do you say that I am? And we have to answer for ourselves. The revelation will come to us by the grace of God as it did for Peter. Our answer includes what we believe about Jesus, and then how we live out that belief. Based on your answer, what nickname would Jesus give to you? To God be the glory forever and ever. Amen.